Good morning. This is Joe Masabni, Extension Vegetable Specialist, and part of our small acreage horticultural crops online webinar series. I'm excited today to present to you my thoughts on starting an urban farm, small acreage farms, whatever you want to call it. Basically, any small operation that fits in our model plan of small acreage horticultural crops. I'm also excited to have a guest speaker who will present after me, Ms. Becky Calloway, who will share her experiences on starting her operation since 2011. So I will start with general information on what you need to know before you start an operation. Okay, and some things we can help you very well with, and some things you'll have to do on your own, and we'll talk about those. We'll talk about those when we get there. So whether you have a small backyard garden like you see here, my two raised beds behind my home, or you have a huge, here's more picture of this year's garden. The previous slide shows you last year's garden. The tomatoes on the upper left were planted in February 17. I have a, I guess, protected microclimate. I was able to my tomatoes didn't get hurt at all. And you can see here, these two on the left are from last year's garden. This is this year's garden, and I used hot caps to protect the tomatoes, with hot caps, without hot caps, to see if they will work. And hot cap is nothing but a wax piece of paper that makes a mini greenhouse over the plants. But I guess even 32 with wind didn't bother me at all because of where I am. Sheltered garden in a subdivision. City heat helped a lot with that. Lots of herbs, grafted tomato, onions, lettuce, all kind of things is doing really great. So whether you have a small garden or a huge operation like this, almost 70 acres, and these pictures here you see is in Harwood, Texas, and this is in that grows only Indian food for the Indian community. This is, I guess, still fits in the model of small acreage, growing specialized crop for a specialized clientele. What you see here in the upper left is garlic bulbs. He plants them whole over the winter. In 30 days, he gets the leafy greens, and he sells them as green garlic. And that's very popular in Indian cuisine. I think I like that model better than growing clove garlic for cloves. It's a lot faster. In 30 days you can remove it. You can harvest this crop here you see in the upper left corner and replant one crop after another every 30 days. So but the bottom line I'm trying to get at is whether, even if you have a small garden or you have a operation like this, you got to start with a plan. This gentleman started with a plan, business plan. He had business background. He did his homework. Knew how much he wanted to invest, knew how much money he was willing to lose between quotation marks, meaning that you got to spend, build up the clientele, build up the business, and now 4 or 5 years later he's starting to recoup his profit on his investment. Not everybody can afford to do this. When I asked him, he said he spent so far about $700,000 between cost of the land, cost of preparation, setting up in-ground irrigation system, all this. But he'll easily make it up in the future once, because he did his homework. He found the buyers before he started growing anything, and we'll talk about that more in marketing. But this is the most critical, and this is what I meant by we can help you. I personally can help you with the production aspect, but it's up to you to be the businessman, to find your market, to make your calls, to build up your clientele. This is your job. Okay, so for any business model, especially in vegetable production, you really need to consider these three factors. You need enough water, you need good soil type, get a soil test, study the land, ask the county agent about that land you're interested in buying. They can look up the soil maps for that region, tell you how good, how bad. You really don't want to start with trash because you cannot fix it. You want to start with relatively good soil that will benefit you. You don't want to spend every year trying to fix problems in the soil, whether it's poor drainage, whether it floods every time it rains, or things like, or very high pH or very low pH or things like that. Of course, desirable environment, we can play with that. We can modify the environment. We can adapt to the environment, planting different crops suitable for that season. If any one of those is lacking or is a challenge, successful production is really unlikely. It's going to be a struggle. You're going to be struggling and spending money every year instead of money initially and making more money later. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about water. Except for watermelon, which can be grown what we call dry land production, meaning just rely on rainfall. Except for watermelon, everything else need water. Okay, so we cannot rely on rainfall to produce a crop. In the past, I heard growers in the Jacksonville area telling me they used to grow dry land tomatoes. But in the last 10 years, rainfall is becoming less and less and unreliable. They all switched to plastic culture and drip irrigation. Even watermelon will benefit from extra irrigation. You can double your yield if you add more water. So keep that in mind. Water is number one factor, and not just water, quantity and quality of water. And let's talk a little bit about quantity. When you realize that in a rule of thumb that most plants need about an inch per week, then you must find that you need a well or a source of water that can deliver 27,000 gallons a week. In June, July, August, you probably need 3 times as much because of the excessive evapotranspiration and the fast growth that plants are growing through. So make sure your water supply can meet that demand before you jump in head first. Okay. Getting a water test early on will tell you your water quality. Is it acceptable? Does it have excessive salt, which can be a serious issue, and that can be a serious problem. This table here shows you an idea of the total water need of some of the crops. Okay, like I told you, watermelon can be grown in dry land because it only needs 10 inches per season. Sometimes we get that during the season between the spring and a couple of summer rainfalls. We may get that enough and we can produce a crop. Even though beans and carrots here are about the same amount of water they need, 10 to 15 inches per season, I haven't yet found any commercial grower that has been able to get a decent crop without drip irrigation. But look at tomatoes, you need double that amount. Sweet corn, potatoes, peppers, 25 inches per season. 25 inches times 27,000 gallons, that is a lot of water. Okay, so um, back to the water quality. This table here is good information. Keep that when you get a water test. Look at the sodium levels in your water. Look at the chlorine, look at the chlorine concentration, at the sulfur concentrations, and it'll tell you where your water is. And water is classified 1 through 5, 1 being excellent. If your sodium is 1 part per million, 1 through 5 part per million, very low. Chlorine, 4 part per million, sulfur, 4 parts per million. But I've seen water, especially as you go west, in the state, you can have 2,000 parts per million. And that is not acceptable. More than 3,000 and unsuitable. You're basically adding salt water, almost salt water, and very few plants can grow in that. Okay, so again, part of the business plan is to do the homework early, study the soil, study the location, study the drainage, study the water quality, the water quantity. Okay, and SAR stands for sodium absorption ratio. When you get a water value, they test that. They do the math and tell you what's your value of sodium SAR value for your water. Okay, so if it's 10 or less, you have very low hazard of sodium in your water. In College Station, we are about 10 to 12. When I test my garden soil throughout the season, my sodium goes up because I'm watering with sodium in my city water. College Station area, we have salt in our water. But by the following spring, at the beginning of the season, when I test it again, the sodium is very low because we do get enough water, or in the fall and winter it washes away all the salts. So you can live with a little bit of sodium if you are in the low to medium range, as long as we get enough rainfall to wash away the salts accumulated. And with that in mind, crops are rated as sensitive, moderately sensitive, or tolerant of soil or water salinity. So if your water is salty and you get a soil test and the sodium is not going back down, it's staying up, maybe bean, carrot, and onion should not be in your production, because the yields will be low, you'll be struggling no matter how much water you add or fertilizer you add. Okay, this group here, most of the crops in general are moderately sensitive. They can tolerate it. You can do some things. You can add gypsum. You can add calcium to counterbalance the sodium effect. Gypsum is calcium sulfate. Then the calcium will compete with the sodium and reduce its effect. Of course, beet, squash, and zucchini are moderately tolerant. I know asparagus is very tolerant to salt. That can be an option to consider. There is very little market for asparagus. Okay, we talked about the water. Now let's talk about the soil. When you consider buying a new land, you want to think of these values here. You want good drainage, and not just soil surface drainage, but internal drainage. How fast that soil drains after a rainfall. You have heavy clay soil, we can fix that with compost, with even a French drain. I mean, that's what we used to do in Michigan. They used to drain marshes with underground drainage, and they are the best agricultural lands available. But without fixing the drainage, it's a marsh or a swamp. You want a slight slope or level, so that when there's rainfall you don't erode your soil, and that can be a struggle year after year. You don't want low spots that can accumulate water. You don't want big chunks of rocks that can break up your tiller or your discs. You don't want trees. So maybe and that's what that gentleman in Harwood did. He spent probably 6 months clearing trees and making big 10-acre blocks instead of 2 acres here and then a row of trees and 1 acre here surrounded by trees. So that's part of the business plan. pH is important. Again, soil test is important. If you are a commercial grower, even a homeowner, you got to get a soil test once or twice a year. Even a homeowner, I tell everybody, get a soil test at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. You want to see what changes you have made to your soil with your fertilizer and with your water. If it's the same, you're wonderful. That soil is sustainable. It can produce year after year. If at the end of the season your soil nutrition is lower, then you depleted your soil of minerals, and that's not sustainable. If it's high, if it's at the end of the season, your soil nutrition is higher than at the beginning, you added too much fertilizer, you can cut down a little bit and save money and still get the same yield that you got. pH, ideally 6 to 6.5, 6 to 6.8. You hear all kind of numbers in the literature. But honestly, 5.5 to 8 to 8.3 is acceptable with minimum loss at 5.5 or 8.3. And really no need to get too nervous about pH if it's 8. Okay. And if your pH is high, you gotta realize that it takes longer time to reduce it than if your pH is low. If your pH is 5.5 and in 3 weeks you can add lime and get a soil test and you find that it's 7. But if your pH is 8 and you want to reduce it to 7, it may take you 3 months to get there. So keep that in mind. You add sulfur, you mix it in, you wait, you get a soil test a month later, you'll see, you may find that it takes you 2 or 3 months. Okay? So we can fix problems, but why not find the location that is has as few problems you have to fix, so you don't spend a lot of money, a lot of investment fixing problems with the hope that it will get better. Okay, excuse me. All right. Now, the environment, so we talked about the 3 factors. Remember, they are water, soil, and environment. The environment have a big influence on yield and quality, on your disease pressure, and your insect population. Of course, in Texas, it's hot and humid, in half of Texas. The other half is hot and dry. So we have challenges here, but we are still number 3 or 4th, I think, in terms of production. So it can be done, and the environment can be manipulated. But keep that in mind, is that we are not ideally suited for production. We have to find what crop is suited for this season or for that season. Plant as early as possible for tomatoes so you can get done by July or mid-July before they shut down production. It is not like Michigan where you plant it and you forget it and it'll produce only frost at the end of in the fall, kills your plant. We are not that lucky. So our cultural practices, whether it's a mulching, whether it's field preparation, drainage, adding French drain to drain fields, whether it's high tunnel with plastic for extra warmth, or high tunnels with shade cloth to cool them down, those can help reduce some of the effects of not an ideal environment or not an ideal water and soil. but there's so much we can fix. Our cultural practices cannot fix all those problems. So keep that in mind. Top number one priority in your mind should be to find the most desirable location in terms of water and soil, to reduce the worries that you have to deal with day after day and year after year. The most important one, which is beyond my hands. I mean, I can't help you with the market and marketing. I cannot tell you who's going to buy from you. This is up to the grower, is to find their own market. And some of the best growers that I know tell me I've already sold the crop before I even planted it. Keep that in mind. You have found an outlet for that crop before it is even planted. And the biggest challenge, the biggest limiting factor to successful vegetable production is a lack of market. Texas is growing in population. We have lots of major cities, and they're getting bigger. So an urban farm should not face such a challenge if they've done their homework in advance, built up. And then Miss Becky will elaborate on her personal experience, how she built up her clientele. Okay, keep in mind that the vegetable produce market are highly elastic. One day you may sell $1,000, next day nobody's buying anything, and we don't know why. Maybe it's a festival in another city, people are going to that festival, or the weather got cold, people are not going out in the rain to buy vegetables. And our market window are narrow. Vegetables are available for 5 to 6 weeks. Tomatoes, for example, we have that challenge. We have a competition from other regions, other states, other countries. For example, tomatoes in Texas, when they shut down production in July, Kentucky comes in the market. So Kentucky always, when I was in Kentucky, we always looked at Texas when they are their yields and their sales are going down. Then Kentucky growers get the optimal price for their product. July to mid-August, Kentucky is swimming in good income from tomato production, and then Michigan comes in, and then our prices fall through the fall to the ground, and it's not worth even harvesting. Okay, so developing a market and markets, not just rely on one customer. Customers are fickle, whether it's a homeowner buying at your stand, or at the farmer market, or a restaurant, or a chain. They may change their mind. You don't know. So make sure it's a market, more than one option available for you. And the development of that market and the market plan are your first step for a profitable production. Okay, so the major pitfall from my experience and other specialist experience is that many producers, their marketing strategy is a lack of strategy. It's like the movie, the baseball movie. If you build it, they will come. If you grow it, they will find you. The growers, the consumer will find you. That is wrong. You gotta start. Lack of strategy is a major pitfall. So some of the decision you want to ask yourself before you even start planting is, where do I want to sell it? What do I want to sell it? How much do I want to sell? How much can I afford to sell? How much can I afford to lose? What is my market window? Do I have cold storage? Or what I harvest must be sold in the next couple of days, 2 or 3 days, or it's trash. or goes in the compost pile? All these questions you have to ask yourself when you realize that produce is perishable. It cannot sit like a dry bulb onion, even in the heat, and it'll store relatively. You cannot store lettuce or tomatoes for excessive periods of time, hoping to sell it the next day or the following day. Because the next day or the following day you're harvesting more, and then all right. So other consideration to keep in mind beside the market, the second or probably the topmost reason many operations fail is available labor force. You've all heard of the Pecos melon. Pecos cantaloupe is famous in the Pecos, Texas area. It is not a variety of cantaloupe, it is the region that was grown in. And they were king of the cantaloupes, famous in Texas, and now they're one or two growers with minimal acreage. And the reason, not because market is not there or demand is not there. No, it's just labor preferred to go to home construction instead of working in the field. Plus, of course, the cost of fertilizer and cost of seed increased so much it wasn't profitable anymore. Your infrastructure. How much are you willing to spend on cooling, on storage, on a truck, for transportation, equipment for harvest? You wanna keep in mind that the produce that you're making, that you're growing, has to be targeted for the market you have in mind. You don't want to grow any less. You don't want to grow too much more. So your level of production should be targeted for that market you have in mind. With time, as you open up more markets, whether it's another client, another restaurant that's willing to buy from you, then you must adjust accordingly and plant more. But bottom line is, don't grow it first and hope that, and then find the market after. And here's the reasons why labor is very essential. Most vegetables are hand harvested, even vegetables that use equipment to harvest, like a big machine that for lettuce harvest, it still have to be harvested by hand, and then they put it on the belt for transportation and clean up and packaging in the field. But it all starts with hand harvesting. So they are a high maintenance crop, high hand labor involved, and we are facing this issue with lack of skilled labor in many areas of the state and in many states. That same problem for California, Kentucky, Michigan, every other state is facing. Here's examples of the infrastructure you want to consider based on the size of your operation. Do you want to? Are you selling to a packing shed, a broker, or a processor? That's your size of operation. You don't need a packing shed if you just down the road somebody is packing it for you, which what they do in Uvalde when they grow all the spinach. They just harvest it and they load it on trucks like this, and it goes to a central packing shed for processing. What kind of chemical equipment you need? You need a contact list of reliable suppliers of chemicals, equipments, tools, parts, plastic mulch, strip tape that will deliver overnight. Those contacts are your lifeblood in case anything breaks, and your produce depends on it. Are you selling this gentleman in Harwood? He made contacts. He doesn't have to ship anything. The buyer, his broker, sends in the trucks, the refrigerated trucks, to pick up all the produce. He found a niche suitable for him. Of course, he has 100 acres, 70 acres, going to 100 acres of production, and he can afford that. He can guarantee a supply if that truck comes in once a week. If they come in once a week and it goes back half full or quarter full, that broker is going to find another customer, because he has customer waiting for him. He cannot afford to spend the money to send a truck to come back half full only. Specialized equipment, depending on the crop that you have, what you're growing. Do you need a specialized harvester, a specialized packing line, cleaning and storage, cleaning and sorting equipment? This comes with time, but it is based on the decision of what your market is. What is the market demand? How fast can I grow based on how fast I'm selling? You can spend $1 million to buy all this, but if you don't have a buyer, it's just going to sit there and rust. Okay, so the level of sophistication, your target of level of sophistication should be related to your target market. Okay, if you're a direct marketer, pick your own roadside stand or farmers markets, then your level of sophistication in terms of equipment, facilities is not as expensive, is not as elaborate as if you are selling wholesale to shippers, to packers, or if you are on a processing. Most of us in the small acreage horticulture crop model fit in here, where we are direct marketing type of producer, and when you look at Johnson's backyard in Austin, he started here with his backyard. That's why his business name is Johnson's Backyard. Then he started with half acre, then it became 20 acres. He started selling direct to stores, shippers, and now he has his own processing and sorting and cleaning and storage, and he has 100 acres, or I believe 200 acres. So it's the natural growth of any business. You start small, you sell locally, then you get bigger, more sophisticated equipment, larger volume clientele. So the bottom line is, prior to starting a vegetable production, do your homework. Talk to a business company that helps with the business plan. What is your business cost? What is your market and market window? Visit other growers in the region. Visit them. Some are willing to talk. You're not competition to them. They're established. They have their own clientele. They may work with you, buy some of your products to fill in their needs. It happens before. Even Johnson's backyard with his 200 acres, he buys from other organic growers and he sells to other organic growers. So we are not competing with each other. Okay, do your homework, learn everything you need to learn about production, visit your county extension agent or your specialist, and line up financing. Unless you are like this gentleman, the Indian gentleman who was in the business, who was a businessman and had a lot of money and was able to invest $750,000. Most of us don't have $750,000 sitting in the bank waiting to be spent or invested. There are ways to line up financing, and again, this is nothing that I can help with. I mean, we have grants, we have grower grants that the university can help with. Other growers I know, they, between their friends, they each one invested 20, 30,000 to start a business. So line up financing, whether from a bank or a group of friends willing to invest in your business, or grower grants. Initial startup size and expansion. Never plant more than you can afford to lose. Okay, so don't overestimate the demand. You always have 10% loss at harvest because they're not perfectly shaped, or have insect damage, or they rotted, or they fell from the basket and crushed. You may lose 10% in the cleaning and shipping and sorting. So he's already 10 to 20% loss from what you're able to grow. You cannot afford to lose more because it wasn't sold. Okay, most of us think that if we expand too fast, that's great news. I doubled my sales the next year. Okay, I'm gonna double it the third year. I'm gonna plant 5 times more the fourth year. Well, no, remember that market and the consumer is fickle and elastic. Grow slowly, be conservative in your expansion, because it can come back and haunt you. So start small and grow steadily as the demand increases. Keep in mind, I don't want to lose more than 16% of what I planted. Otherwise something is wrong. So good record keeping is important. How much you planted, how much you harvested, what was your expected yield, what is the projected yield for that crop at that planting density, and that gives you an idea of how much you really sold. If it's around 16, 15 to 20%, let's say, then you're fine. Any more, then you need to reconsider your business plan. Let me talk a little bit about direct marketing, or the type of grower that is privately owned, sells on the farmer's market or on the roadside stand. The requirements for a successful farmer market or roadside stand is location, location, location. Okay, just like buying or selling a house. Plenty of signage, word of mouth, newspaper article, radio, TV, if they're willing to come and do a clip on your operation, you just word of mouth. Plenty of parking for the customer to come in, easy access and exit. And let me show you some pictures, or what I mean, visually represent what I mean here. A clean and clutter-free facility is very important. Okay, and let me show you what I mean. This is the fawn patch at College Station in Bryan. Okay, wonderful operation. Everything you want, exotic fruits from all around the food, very reasonable prices. But they have parking space for 3 cars, and right in a congested area. When you want to back up from the parking lot, you're in traffic. I often pass by there with the intention to stop and buy, and I end up changing my mind, going somewhere else just because they're full. I'm not gonna walk a block down the road and walk to them. Okay. This is plenty of signage, but the problem here is that they're too close to each other. If you're driving 60 miles an hour, by the time you read the first sign, you're already quarter of a mile past that operation. They got these 5 or 6 signs. They probably should have started a mile down the road and every half mile apart. Otherwise, how are you gonna decide? Instantly you want to decide, I want a smoked sausage, and you slam the brakes and stop and buy it? Very few of us are dying for ice cream, 8 flavors when they're driving 60 or 70 miles an hour. A clean and clutter-free facility, whether at your farmer's market or the roadside stand. As a consumer, I know how I feel. If I go and I see the grower's hands are dirty, with still dirt on him, and clothes are dirty, and this, how do I know that his produce is clean and safe? Or if the bench is so neat, display bench, bins, easily accessible, clearly marked with prices, smiling face, good personal relationship with that buyer, makes a big difference. It appeals to the eyes first before you decide that you want to buy from this stand or from that stand, or become a return customer, come back next time, because you had you were treated right, you felt that the prices are great, the produce looks good, the displays are clean, so. This is the inside picture of that farm patch. Like I told you, everything is clearly marked, well organized, good customer rapport from between the owner and the clientele. They get to know you on first name basis, competitive prices. This picture is taken in Mexico, and it reminds me of my home country in Lebanon. We put the produce on the ground, and I guess we don't worry too much about food safety yet. A picture like this is unacceptable here in the U.S. You cannot put your, maybe watermelon, but you cannot put your peppers on the ground and expect people to buy them and feel safe. And so with all the recent issues of food safety and salmonella or E. coli poisoning, a situation like this is not acceptable. Of course, this is an old picture. I guarantee you, if you go to Mexico now, in major cities like this picture was taken, you will not find this. Okay. That is all I had in this first 45 minutes. I will turn it on now to Miss Becky Calloway. Her farm is called Skinny Lane Farm. She's in Elgin, Texas. And
good morning.
Good morning, Becky. I gave you the controls. If you have any trouble with the slides, don't hesitate to say next, and I'll be happy to do it.
Okay, thank you. So the first thing you've done that we didn't do, and I wish we'd done, is come and watch a presentation like this. It's excellent, and everything that we should have done when we started our farm. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the things that we did when we got started, and then the things that we would do differently. As you can see, we have a farm in Elgin, and we're primarily doing organic vegetables. We're family owned, and we started the farm in March of 2011. Okay, clicking on this and see if there we go. So what you see in the picture there is the field that we are currently growing in, and what it looked like when we purchased the land. And actually, that's right after we cleared it. So if you kind of look to the back of the field there, you can see a lot of green trees, and those are mesquite trees. So that whole field was covered with mesquite, and the first thing we did was clear the trees off the land. We decided to start a farm because I had been doing a lot of growing vegetables in raised beds in our backyard, and I had gotten chickens, and I'd pretty much overgrown the backyard, so I thought that it would be neat if I could make a business out of it, so we decided to purchase some land. We didn't really do any research. We didn't have a business plan. and we intended to do everything funding with our own personal savings. A little bit about our background, which makes this even worse that we did it this way. I am, in my past career, was a market researcher at a technology company, and my husband is a product manager for a technology company. So our backgrounds are in business. So shame on us that we didn't write a business plan immediately. The first problem we had was the land that we purchased is in the Blackland Prairie. So it's clay. And we went ahead and tilled it up, and we got a big pile of what you see there in that picture. Basically, we created a gravel field. So that was the first thing we were going to need to address, was how are we going to turn this very rich soil, but it has a lot of nitrogen, it's really good soil, but you have to add a lot of compost to that to get it to something that you can put seeds in. The second mistake we made was we didn't really research what's the best piece of land for something like this. We found this piece of property, we thought it was pretty, we bought it. Well, there's no underground water in the Elgin area, so that meant that we were going to have to use city water. And now you have another cost that you're going to have to add into your calculations is you're now paying for the water that you're using to irrigate. The next thing that happened that was kind of the thing that you deal with the most in farming is Mother Nature. So we purchased this property in March of 2011, and if you remember, that was about the last rainfall for that year. So we didn't have a good water system out there. We didn't have any irrigation. We had no electricity. It turned out that there was water at the base of the land, but the pipes had not been set in correctly up to where the field was. So the first thing we had to do was hire somebody to come in and run water pipes up the driveway to where the planting area was going to be. So immediately we had a lot of out-of-pocket expenses that we hadn't counted on, and we're very slowly chipping away at all of the funds that we had planned to use on seeds and tractors and other items that we really hadn't counted on these other expenses. So at that point, we stopped and we assessed the situation. We realized we were running out of money. We knew at that point we needed to write a business plan. As you can see in the picture there, I actually found a contest. So Big Austin runs a contest every year for writing a business plan. So I thought, well, this would be great. It'll motivate me to get a business plan written. Even if we don't win, I'll have my business plan. And hey, if we win, we'll get some money. So we entered the contest and we won. And now the check there says $10,000. It was actually $5,000 in cash. And then the other $5,000 was like consulting services with different companies. And I can guarantee you $5,000 doesn't go very far. So that money was gone pretty quickly. But what happened at that point was we realized that we really needed to sit down and reassess what are we actually doing here. It doesn't matter whether you're selling software, jewelry, beef, or vegetables. You really need to have a business plan because it's all the same model. Joe hit a lot of great points in his PowerPoint. You need to know how much are you going to be growing, how much are you going to be selling, who are you going to sell it to, how much is it going to cost. We had also been doing chickens and selling their eggs, and we had a huge demand for the eggs, and we thought we were doing great. And then we finally decided to sit down and really calculate how much money we were making on the chicken eggs, and when we did, we found out we were losing $2 a dozen. So we've been charging $4 a dozen for the eggs. We were feeding them organic chicken feed. So the chicken feed, we were going through about $70 a week on cost there, and we were selling 1.5 to 2 dozen eggs a day. So you can do the math there, $4 a dozen, 2 times 14, not including the cost of the egg carton or the cost of the label, we were losing $2. So basically, we might as well just have given everybody a dozen eggs and $2 along with it. You really need to write a business plan. And if you don't know how to write a business plan, you need to find somebody to write a business plan for you. It's the only way to really know what you're getting yourself into. We had so many costs that we hadn't anticipated and drained our funds so quickly that once we had really streamlined the processes and knew what we wanted to do, now we had a cash problem. So Joe hit a really good point, location. You really need to do what type of soil do you need? Does it have water? If you have cattle and you don't have water on your land and you're just relying on a pond and the rain, well, I refer back to the drought. There were so many cattle ranchers that were having to sell off their cattle that year because their ponds had all dried up and they didn't have any other water available for them. We had also a problem. We have some cattle, small amount of cattle and donkeys on our land, and the reason that we had purchased them was we thought it would be great for the property if they were grazing the land and adding fertilizer to the soil. Well, we immediately had to start buying hay for them. So there was another unexpected cost. So in your business plan, you need to have a contingency plan for everything that could go wrong, because I guarantee you it probably will. And then again, some of this is referring back to the same stuff Joe talked about, but access to your market. We're in Elgin. We hope to do most of our business in Elgin, but it turns out we're doing a lot of our business in Austin. So now we're driving 30 miles to get to the markets there. So you have to add in the mileage on your vehicle. You have to add in the gas costs. How are you going to transport? On a small scale, it was fine to throw 2 or 3 ice chests in the back of my pickup truck. But now when I go into Austin, I need to transport 6 or 7 ice chests. I can't get those in my truck. So even now that we're 2 years into it, I'm still dealing with lots of problems that I hadn't really expected or counted on. Some other things to think about. Fencing. So we have, for a vegetable garden, a lot of different predators that are coming in. And I say predators, we also have predators going after the chickens, but even in the garden we're dealing with rabbits, mice, raccoons, all kinds of animals that are coming in and eating our profits. So having a plan for good fencing and a good way to keep these things out of your garden and away from your animals so that you don't lose money by losing crops and losing livestock to predators. You need to be ready to deal with land management. So we brought in a lot of compost to turn this clay into something that we could deal with, but we weren't doing soil testing. So now we're doing soil testing. We're really analyzing what do we need to add as we go through and we do each crop. We reanalyze that section of the garden. How did it hold up? Do we need to do a cover crop? Again, back to water. Water has been such a big issue for us. So even though we have a steady flow of water because we're using county water, we didn't have a good irrigation system set up. So during the drought, we were having a lot of problems with animals that were in the area. There was no water available. They were chewing on the irrigation lines, and every day we would come out and turn on the irrigation, and it would be like a fountain in Las Vegas with different spouts of water flying up in the air, and we're running around trying to get them all sealed. So really have to think about all of the different things that could go wrong and make sure you have a plan for it. You need to know what type of tools you're going to have. We did not have a tractor when we first started, and we were trying to do everything with hose and a tiller. We had a small truck. We've upgraded to a larger truck, and we're about to upgrade again to an even larger truck. You need to think about what type of facilities you're going to need on your land. We had been harvesting and washing and prepping the vegetables with tables and a hose and ice chests. Well, we've grown so much that that's not really a feasible way for us to harvest our crops anymore. So we're now putting in a harvest station and a cooler, things that we probably should have done first. Selling is really important too, and again, Joe mentioned this, and I can't emphasize this enough. You can grow the most beautiful produce and just have people admiring it, but if you don't have a good channel for distribution, it's going to come back and bite you. When we first started selling our vegetables, we tried to go to the farmers markets, but there's a lot of competition at the big farmers markets, and we had such a small amount of produce that we really wouldn't sell anything. When we went to the smaller farmers markets, we had a better chance, but then you have less traffic coming through. So that really wasn't a good way for us to distribute the vegetables. So then what we decided to do was we started an email newsletter, and we asked people to send to their friends our newsletter link. We got on Facebook. We went to our neighborhood Yahoo groups and tried to hit a lot of people in the area and where we were working, and basically started sending out once a week what produce we had available, what prices, and then we would let people order directly from us and deliver to them. And that was okay to kind of get the word of mouth started and get some small deliveries out, but really wasn't going to work on a larger scale. So this year we started what's called a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. And I really love this model. It takes a lot of work to get your membership up to the levels you need, but what it gives you is a purchase in advance. So people pay you for a share of whatever it is that you're growing, or beef or meat or chickens, eggs. They pay you in advance, and that gives you the money to get the labor and the compost and the seed and the feed to get everything rolling. And then during a set number of weeks, you provide them with a share of the market. We're currently in the process of trying to get a couple of restaurants so that we can deliver directly to them. We're also looking for other folks to distribute for us. And we've now found a pretty good farmers market in the East Austin area that we can call our home for a while and help us move some of the produce. One of the problems we're having right now is the field has done so well, we actually have too much. So we're running around trying to find people to buy the produce before it goes bad, because I can't think of anything worse than having several rows of beautiful lettuce and watching it wilt in the field because you don't have anybody to buy it. So you really need to have a good crop plan, a good distribution plan. Make sure you know who you're going to sell it to, where you're going to sell it, how much you're going to sell it for before those seeds go into the ground. Marketing for me is a lot of fun because, as I mentioned, it's in my background. It's tricky with the marketing because in the beginning I did such a good job of it that I had people calling me for produce that I hadn't grown yet. So you have to have a balance of making sure that you have enough demand but not too much demand. There's lots of different ways right now that you can kind of get into the following for produce and vegetables. We have a website, and we update it regularly with news and information about what we're doing on the farm. We have a Facebook page for the farm. We have a Twitter account, and then we also have an account with MailChimp that we do our newsletters for. And this has really helped us a lot. I mean, this is such a key tool. if people don't know about you, then you don't have anyone to sell to. So we need things like volunteers to come out and help us on the weekend. So I can easily go throw something out on Facebook or send a Twitter message out, send a newsletter notice to everyone, hey, come on out, we could use some help this weekend. I've gotten to the point now where I'll go places where I'm at a meeting or there's other agricultural folks, and I'll say, hi, I'm Becky, Skinny Lane Farm. Oh, Skinny Lane Farm, I've heard of you. So it's really important that you get your name out there and that you establish a brand for yourself and a reputation that when people think of you, they're like, oh, yeah, that's great, I know them, and they have a really good reputation. Get people involved. You can't have too many people helping you in this business. Networking is really important, and if you wondered what Joe looked like, he's the guy on the left there in the red jacket. We've joined a lot of farm associations. The one that I've found most beneficial is TOFCA, and that's Texas Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. And pretty much most of the established organic farmers in the area are members, and this has been just great being able to go to they have educational seminars, they have a newsletter, so I'm getting all kinds of useful information out of that membership. We have started having a collaboration with A&M, and this has been huge for us too. Joe has been wonderful. He came out with our team to the farm. They looked at what we were doing. They gave us advice. They have helped us with soil analysis. So, this is just, you can't put a price on that kind of knowledge that we don't have. Another cool partnership that we discovered is a culinary school in Austin that has a program called Farm to Table. And all of the culinary students have to do internships before they can get their degrees. And so they have partnership farms, and they have meat farms and vegetable farms and coffee growers, and basically the students at the end of their session go and do hours working at no charge to you on the farm. So we benefit because we get their help. They benefit because they're learning more about where the food supply comes from. So that is a really valuable relationship for us. And then the volunteers. The more volunteers you can get out there, the better off you are, because every time you have to pay somebody to do something, there goes you're taking chunks out of your profits. When we first had our first garden, I remember I pulled a big head of broccoli and brought it home to show my husband, and he said, that broccoli's worth $500. So we have so many sunk costs in the farm right now, it's going to be a while before we actually make any money. I put other farmers last on this list, but they are really the most valuable. As I was researching what we were doing and trying to learn from books and online sources, there's just so much information. There's nothing like going and spending the day with somebody who knows what they're doing. I encourage you, go out, find other folks that are doing what you want to do, call them, email them, find some people that are willing to talk to you, that will let you come spend, a week. I did several half-day volunteers on other farms. It really wasn't enough. I wish that I had spent a whole year researching what we were going to do, and I wish that I had done a lot more volunteering, because the more knowledge you can get before you get started, the easier it's going to be, and the less likely that you're going to run into some of the bumps in the road that can be avoided just by having done your research on the back end. Really important that you know the law. We sell chicken eggs. You can sell chicken eggs from your farm without having to have any type of inspection, but you can only sell them directly to the person who's going to use them. They need to be labeled. We put a warning on the eggs. You always need to use a fresh carton. There's all kinds of laws out there about how you can do things, and if you don't know what they are and you break one, you're going to get in trouble eventually. It's just a matter of time. and it ties right into food safety. So the last thing I want to do is have somebody get sick off of something that we sold off of our farm. So taking a food safety course, making sure you know everything that touches everything you're doing out there so that you don't take any chances on losing what you've worked so hard for. Labor is tricky too. So this is a picture of the culinary students out working for us. We always keep an eye on what's going on. You don't ever want to put somebody out there that you haven't done a lot of work with and just let them go. They can ruin a crop. They can touch things and then not wash their hands and ruin vegetables that you can't sell because now they are possibly infected. Be really careful about who you hire to work for you. We always get 3 bids on large jobs. When we first purchased the land, one of the things that we did, as I mentioned, was clearing the land of the mesquite trees. Well, we just took a reference, took the first guy that came out, he cleared the land, and he was also doing a pond for us, and he did not do it correctly. The pond did not stay put. We had no kind of warranty on his work, so we ended up having to go back and re-clear out the mesquites in the front area, and we still have a pond that's broken that we don't have the money to do anything to fix. So take your time. Anything you do, do your research, get lots of bids, get lots of references, check the people out who come to work for you. The pictures here, on the top is the picture I showed you at the beginning of that field, and below it is what it looks like about a week ago. It's actually about twice that big right now. We went from about a 1/4 acre pumpkin patch 2 years ago to a full acre this year. We have a 30-member CSA. We go to the farmer's market. We sell our excess produce to a food delivery service. We're making progress, but it's been really, really hard. Absolutely make sure you love this, because if you don't, you're not going to last. Do a lot of research. Remember, making sure that you have somebody to sell it to is just as important as growing it. And find as much support out there as you can. Know other farmers, find people in agriculture, get connected, because you'll need a lot of help. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Becky. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Becky or me before we end this session early?
Joe?
Yes, sir.
Did Becky mention the number of acres that she currently has in production?
Yes, we currently have 1 acre in production, but we're in the process of preparing several other fields right now. Ultimately, with the land that we have, we can do 3 to 4 acres total. And as I kind of mentioned before, we're trying to go a little bit slower now and make sure we don't rush into it too quick. It's myself full-time. We hired a farm manager this year, so we have one full-time employee, my husband part-time, and then any help we can get. So, you know, we have the knowledge at this point that we could go to, you know, 3 or 4 acres, but we don't have the resources, we don't have the labor. It's hard to find good people that'll come out and do this kind of work, and we're trying to recapture some of the funds that we put into it in the beginning and get a little bit further ahead before we do too much more growth. Does that make sense?
Definitely. You mentioned in your business plan, you have a future projection of a max out of what you see would be the final amount of land that you'd have in production for profit.
Correct. So we included in our business plan that we would start a CSA this year. We included that it would be a 30 to 40 member CSA. We're at 50 now. And then we forecasted out 5 years in our business plan. So, and we also forecasted how much money we would lose in the process. And I think that's a hard one for people when they first start getting into it. Unless you're, you have a whole bunch of money and you're buying something that's already set up and ready to go, it costs a lot of money. If you were starting a restaurant, it's the same thing. You got to have your space leased. You got to buy all the commercial kitchens and stoves. The infrastructure costs alone have just been much, much more than we thought it was going to be.
So in that 5-year plan, that would basically be anywhere from 3 to 5 acres of production?
Correct. And I don't intend to get any larger than that. I kind of have a methodology or a philosophy. I think you can do well on 5 acres. It's just that you're gonna have to find the cash crops, right? And that's what we've been in the process of the last year, is trying to start a really good record keeping and say, okay, we grew this, but we didn't make any money on it. What are we making money on? And you're looking at not only the amount of seed and the amount of it you sold, but how much work was it growing that, right? Spinach is a lot easier to grow than peas that need to be trellised, right? Spinach is a lot easier to harvest than peas. So, I meet a lot of young people that are kind of got their head in the clouds. They think it'd be so great to have an organic farm, and it doesn't matter how much you love it. If you don't make any money at it, you're not going to be doing it very long.
Oh, ASAP. We've got a couple of questions. One of them, in your research as far as crop costs, what was your maybe your top 3 resources that you used to price your crops?
Is that for Becky?
Yes.
So that's a tricky one too, because prices changed with demand. So if I have tomatoes early, I can charge a lot more for them than I can get when everybody has tomatoes, right? So I went to farmers markets and I looked to see what everybody else was selling it for. I went to, there's some, and remember, so I'll kind of jump back a little bit. We are not organic certified, but I follow all of the organic certification guidelines. So I feel like I can charge a premium for our vegetables. So when I do my research on my prices, I'm comparing to organic vegetable prices only. So I'll go to the farmer's market, I'll look and see what everybody else is pricing. I'll go to Central Market or Whole Foods and look at their prices. But, it's a very fine line, on what you can charge, because if you go to the farmer's market and everybody has beets and yours are $5 and they're all organic and they can get them for $3 at another stand, they're going to do it. They're going to go buy the $3 beets. So, it's a little tricky. So usually we just do a range, on our prices as we forecast it. Well, we know we wouldn't sell it for less than X amount. We're probably not going to get more than X amount, and then we take an average and build into that seed costs and labor costs and compost. Because everything you do out there is going to take away from your profit on that product. Every time you hire somebody, right, that comes out of your profit, even if it's just some harvesters on a Saturday.
And if I may add to the farmers market portion of this question here, when I was in Kentucky, the perception of farmers market is that it was cheaper product, and nobody was willing to pay even the same price as what they could get at HEB or Myers or Walmart, and that put the growers in a subsistence type of living. And our biggest push was that no, you stand your ground. Show them your cost. Show them that you're selling them premium quality, fresh, taste good, and ask for a better price that will make you a profit. And if they don't want to buy, they can go to Walmart and buy their vegetables. They don't have to buy it from here. I didn't see that issue here in Texas, where I haven't seen that yet, where some new growers in a farmer's market come in and slash the prices, undercut everybody else's price because they want to sell their product. I haven't seen that. I think here maybe the farm market managers are doing a better job letting everybody know the rules and the conditions of joining a farmer's market. But keep that in mind. Do your business plan. Know what it costs you. Find a reasonable price, profitable price, and if you have good quality, people will know it. And then they'll be willing to pay for it.
And just kind of adding a little bit more onto that, you can be the Saks Fifth Avenue or you can be Walmart, right? You can have a really high quality product and get that additional price point for it, or you can go for large volume and you're going to get a lower price. I truly believe the key to success in this is repeat customers, right? You want to establish a customer base. They're going to stick with you. They're going to buy on a regular basis, and they're going to do a lot of your marketing for you because they're going to tell everybody else, oh, you need to buy from Skinny Lane Farm because their stuff is beautiful.
Okay, thank you, Miss Becky. Very informative. I enjoyed working with you, and we will continue working together with you and other small acreage growers. For those of you in the counties, I'm doing a couple of trials with Miss Becky on soil amendments and fertilization programs to teach them new skills and new production techniques, and then we'll do the math, see if it was profitable or not, because we can add a lot of fertilizers, but if it doesn't make a profit, it's not worth it. So with that, if there's no other questions, I want to thank you all for coming. Ms. Becky, thank you for traveling to Bastrop and presenting. Looking forward to meeting with you soon.
Anybody who would like additional information, or feel free to contact me or come out and visit our farm. I want to help other people get into this, and so it's we have an open door. Thank you.
And just search for Skinny Lane Farm online. Or Becky, you want to give us your website?
Yeah, it's skinnylanefarm.com. So if you Google it, it comes up pretty.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
Dr. Masalny.
Yes, sir.
We had, and we might have a couple more questions here real quick. In the slide that you had concerning water.
Yes.
The 1 inch of water. Can you expand on that a little bit on
yes,
this area?
Yes, sure. When we say 1 inch, we really mean 1 acre inch. So if you have 1 acre of land and you want to cover it with 1 inch layer of water, then you need 27,154 gallons. So of course, if you have a 1/4 acre of land that you're watering, then it's a 1/4 of the 27,000. And if you're using drip irrigation, where you're even watering a third of that quarter of an acre, then it's a third of a quarter of 27,000. But that's whenever you read the literature, it's either acre foot or acre inch. And that is what that number means.
Okay, good deal. Do you have any more questions? No? Okay. All right, thanks, Joe.
Okay, and please remind everybody, whether it's a homeowner, one raised bed, or any grower you're talking to, remind them that drip irrigation is the way to go. And one day we will be forced to use drip irrigation because of the drought and more water regulations. I was in Brownwood last week, and they are not allowed to have any type of outdoor irrigation at all. So nobody is allowed to have a garden or water their lawn, because no outside water is allowed because of the drought they are facing. But at the same time, all the car wash in the city are running full blast. You can't explain that, but the only way in many other cities, some city rules, you can use water without limitation in your garden only if you're using drip irrigation. So that is the way to go. You save a lot of money, and the water use is higher in terms of efficiency. Very little waste in the water happens if you use drip irrigation versus flood or sprinkler or watering by hand.